Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you for joining me here on Sunday Live, where we bring you exciting artists and musicians. That was It's the End, the new acoustic version that will be released on Earth Day 2021. So that's a preview of an upcoming single. If you've been watching the show lately, you've been hearing the acoustic version of Find My Way. That will be released on Valentine's Day 2021 because it was co-written by my wife. And then as far as It's the End, yeah, that's, the world we find ourselves that we have to make some decisions about and make them yesterday. It's also the end of this year. This is the next to the last. So what does that make it? Second to the last? Anyhow, we've got this episode, we got an episode the week after that, and then a wrap-up episode with Tim Lehane, my producer, on both It's the End, Find My Way, Wizard on the Stairs, all the acoustic mixes. He's also done some mastering for Audio Terrorist and worked on some of those singles as well. So it's fitting that we wrap up the year with him being on the show. Our guest today actually was in a Rock Lotto band with Tim just a week ago, and it's exciting to have him on the show as well. Let's see what's going on with Joe. Hey, Mr. Price, are you out there?
Yes, sir, I am.
How the heck are you doing?
Doing well. Work is going splendidly. Social life is surprisingly well, given our isolation. Our in the greater Bay Area here and in California, for the most part, we've ramped up our restrictions or stay-at-home orders. It's like the good old days of April and May. but it's supposed to end until hopefully just after the New Year's. So we'll be toasting champagne from our desktops, I suspect, in the New Year's Eve, and the mistletoe being over again over our desktops for the holiday season. But all is well for the most part, and keeping well, and personally counting my blessings. Also, it is raining heavily here. The rain has stopped, and there was a huge fog, and we've just been treated to a very slice of pretty wonderful sunset as we speak. But all in all, I can't complain. I'm actually loving the change in the atmosphere, the change in seasons. We are getting our rain fashionably late in time for almost Christmas. It should have happened a month ago, but hey, small mercies.
Being in California like you are, any rain is a good thing. It was supposed to rain heavily this week, but it didn't. And in fact, yesterday we got out to Edmonds for their little Christmas fair and walk around their little scenic downtown and get close to the water and the sound, and then realize we were really cold and it was time to go home.
I blush to say we may have mugged you for the rain. We've gotten more than our fair share. I'm taking a shot in the dark and say that fire season is over for California here.
Fingers crossed for you guys. Um, we were
Thank you.
also having fires over the summer out in the east side of the state, which is a drier grassland kind of area. Here near the Sound, near Seattle, it's pretty humid most of the time, even during the summer. So I think the fire risk here is fairly low.
Hmm. Yeah, again, counting our blessings and welcoming the new change. There's something to be said about tan lines in December, so I think I'd rather be a little bit waterlogged just for the change of pace. It's refreshing,
Certainly,
and I'll say that the air is much cleaner.
it clears out the air that gets trapped there in the Bay Area, and gives you possibility of snow so that you have a water supply later in the year. Good things like that.
Absolutely, yes.
Here at the house, we actually have a creek in the backyard, so I have these earthquake emergency kits from California because here's pretty earthquake. You can have pretty strong earthquakes here in Seattle as well, but I can run just down in the backyard and use one of those filtered bottles where you can scoop up any creek, river, whatnot, and it has a filter that runs all the way through it, and you can still drink from it without getting infected.
We,
So
there's a swimming pool down the way, just down the hill from we are, a massive community swimming pool, which is good, I suppose. It's something for the mountain lions to drink from when they saunter past our neighborhood, which they have to do.
well, you got to make sure you have your kit though, and you have your filtration. I don't think chlorine water would be very good for you, let alone not tasty.
Not especially. No, I'm gonna have to be content with rainwater for the time being.
Because I know you go over to Marin a lot. Because if you don't have a kit, people, everybody out there, if you're in an earthquake zone like I am here in Seattle, or Joe that is there in the San Francisco Bay Area, get an earthquake kit for Jeepers. I think the prediction is a 9.0 here in Seattle, potentially in my lifetime, where Joe is. Lifetime, yeah, maybe you never use it and you spend $50, but if you do use it, if you do have a crisis, you're not going to want to be like, oh, geez, I can't eat or drink water, but darn, I saved that $50. So do go out. There's a earthquake store right there in San Rafael, and I know you go to Marin quite often. You can visit them. They have like pre-made kits with 5 days of water, 5 days of food, all dehydrated, and you get a hand crank radio. You can get these canisters again where you just scoop up any old water, put the cap on, and when you pull through the straw, it pulls it through a filter. So there is technology out there. Have someone give it to you for Christmas. Stay safe.
Yeah, matter of fact, I have a hardware store just up the hill from where I live. I have more batteries than Tesla right now.
That's another good thing to have around is certainly batteries for power. Remember, folks, do not light candles in an earthquake because you may have gas released and go boom. That's not good. Think of Santa Rosa 2 years ago. Gas fires are not no. You don't want to have that. Well, there's your public service announcement for this week. And reminder to go get some good Christmas gifts for the ones you love to keep them safe out there. And you can throw some masks into the bundle. So, our guest of the week is Jack Charles. He's a singer, songwriter, musician, and dare I, for the first time ever, give him a fourth title, a performance artist. Hey, Jack, you out there?
I am. I am here with you. How are you doing?
Doing good. Glad to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm happy. I'm thrilled to be here.
And and you were in a Rock Lotto band with Tim Lehane recently.
I was. It was a band called Exploding Oatmeal.
I have experienced this, so I felt very personally attached to the band even before I heard a single note.
It was an amazing experience. I had done kind of a Rock Lotto thing before with the thing here in Austin. But it was, you actually had to get together and rehearse. It was local. You had to cover a certain artist and cover a local artist. And there was all these rules. And so basically it was very different. This was kind of the same thing, but at least in that other one, they made sure you had a drummer or you had a bass player and a guitar player. They made sure that every band had everything. This one was just like so random that, we didn't have a drummer. We had a lot of guitar players and singers, but we ended up, I did drums. I designed some drums for one of the tracks. I played bass. I did backing vocal harmonies on other people's songs too. And it was just such an interesting thing to do. And it was so awesome because it was with people from all over the country. It was, we were all, nobody was together ever during the whole process.
And if you missed it in my opening statement, Tim's been my producer for is it 2 years? Yeah, 2.5 years, because he was in my first Rock Lotto band. And I think that time in San Francisco, we were the only band that had drummer, bass player, guitarist, lead vocals with me. A standard 4-piece band. Everybody else was some odd connection of 3 horn players and a drummer, and we continued to work with that band lineup because it was the first traditional band I've been in, and we produced a single, Rise Up, out of that. And then all the Rock Lottos after that have been a little more trickier to pull off.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but I was really proud of the work we did. We had one song that was like a rock anthem where VK Lines sang. There was another one that was the one I kind of started that was kind of a Talking Heads meets post-punk something or other, which was fun. And then the last one, which was kind of like a Nine Inch Nails type, really dark synthy song. I loved each one of them in their own way, and they were all great. But I could see singles coming out of those, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. When I was listening to them on last Saturday, I was like, these are all singles. These all can be released. With my Rock Lotto band, what I got, since I got a straight up band the first time, the second time was more of electronic bass drum machine duo kind of arrangement. And this time, what I got to do was just have fun. I tend to sing on serious subjects, and this time I was able to just bring out my goofy side, and I did little falsetto bits and little wacky keyboard parts, and so it definitely, no matter who you are, it gives you an opportunity to do something completely different.
Absolutely.
So that's my big set of pitches for Balanced Breakfast and Rock Lotto. There's 2 Rock Lottos every year. There might be in 2021 an online Breakfest, which is usually 3 days of bands playing, and then I forget the funny way that Stefan says the conference, but it's the Balanced Breakfast Conference that we have every year. He's looking into ways to doing that virtually as well, because it doesn't look like we'll be out of this until the summer.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
So, folks, the good news is there's opportunities out there if you want to get involved. If you'd like to check out Balanced Breakfast, we meet every 2 weeks on a Thursday from 11 to 1, and me and Stefan host that meeting. We also have a listening party once a month on the weekend. If you want to play a track you're working on, something you're proud of, and you'd like to share with other people, you can join that. Look for Balanced Breakfast Music Industry Meetup group on Facebook, and that will show you the way. Now, back to Jack Charles, and that's who we have on this week, not Balanced Breakfast. I want to show you a music video called Somewhere in the Universe.
This song is called Somewhere in the Universe. By the time you see its light, this star will have already died. By the time your bondage has ended, you'll see the times were only invented by a ray of light called mind, inserted in a creature of the strangest kind, in a world where truth is everywhere, but so very hard to find. The tear is shed. The book will read what was unsaid. Then you'll find yourself forgiven by the cast of characters you were given. Creatures of the strangest kind, living proof that love is blind, in a world where truth is everywhere but so very hard to find. All you did was fantasize, dreaming up a dream, but never altering in time's stream. How much treasure can we find? Creatures of the humankind, in a world where truth is everywhere, but so very hard to find. Still don't understand, but I offer you this verse. Maybe we'll meet again somewhere in the universe. But I offer you this verse. Maybe we'll meet again somewhere in the universe.
You're listening to Jack Charles's Somewhere in the Universe. Jack, I hope this doesn't make you feel strange, but you're the first person on Balanced Breakfast at one of the meetings playing music. I think it was the music meetup. Anyhow, I heard your music and I immediately bought your album. And out of all my guests, I've bought their albums because they were on my show. But you're the first person on my show who I bought the album before you were on my show.
What can I say? Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you very much.
It's just really cool stuff.
Was it Somewhere in the Universe that sold you on it? Because that's the first song on my album. I don't know. Was that?
I honestly don't remember. I just remember I went to the band camp and grabbed it. It was some track that got played that I'm like, yeah, that's in my basket. That's totally in my wheelhouse. And so great work. I love the stuff. I love how you bring such contradictory elements to your music of energy and this laid back feeling. So there's like this tension underneath a beautiful flowing river. And I find that really unique.
That kind of describes my life. Yeah, there's a current under all the ice. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm a rock and roll guy. Basically, I love rock-based music. I'm more of an alternative kind of enthusiast, but there's always is that energy. I guess that's what gives it the energy a little bit. But I think my lyrical approach to things and the way I sing kind of bring another tone to it as well. You know, I don't know. I like to mix and match a lot of stuff, and I like to make each song I do different somehow. You know, each song is very unique to me. I don't like having everything sound the same all the time.
There's different layers I catch. There's a quiet urgency within your music and your lyrics and singing. It's a very soft but vibrant passion that's behind the music, behind the song.
Thank you. Yes, my work is not all of it, but most of it is sort of not autobiographical, but it's auto-inspired. I guess it's stuff that I can actually own. It's stuff that I've lived and felt and thought about, whatever. So yeah, there is a certain measure of passion in there. I would say that. Yes, I would agree.
Now, how did you get started with music?
With music, I can tell you the whole story. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by music, but there was hardly any music in my home. My parents weren't real. We had a record player, but we had like a few old Christmas albums and like, you know, just odd, just kind of random stuff that was there. And nobody ever really like went out and bought Beatles albums and Rolling Stones albums and stuff like that and brought them home. I was the oldest in the family. But one day I got a hold of an Elton John album at an aunt's house, and I just heard the album so many times that she got sick of it and just gave it to me. She says, "Here, just take it home." And it was Honky Chateau. It was the Honky Chateau Elton album. Rocket Man's on it, Honky Cat's on it. It's a great album. And then I discovered Elton John, and it was like I just loved this guy. I loved his music, and I wanted to hear more of his stuff. And I'd beg my mother to buy me the records, and finally they did. And so I got into music, and then I found out that there was so much music out there and there was so much I wanted to do. And one day I got hit by punk rock as I grew up when I was 17, and I wanted to be in a punk rock band. And so I was, and I lived in Mexico City at that point, and I was inadvertently became a 17-year-old part of the underground punk rock movement in Mexico City way back when. And the thrill of being on a stage, playing with a band, even with all the work and the pain in the ass that it is, you know, rehearsing and writing the songs, rehearsing, getting the show done. I just loved it. And it was something that just I never quite got out of my system. You know, it's always been there. And I guess I still put in all this effort and do all this now because just for those few moments at a show and just to see people get into it and vibe with an audience is one of the best things I have ever felt in my life. I think it's when my life is perfect, or at least feels perfect.
How long were you in Mexico City creating music?
Well, I lived in Mexico City my entire young life. I was there till I was 37. I was in the punk scene for a couple of years in the early 80s. I did one band that never really got off the runway in the mid 80s. That was a very interesting project, and other bands branched out of that group of people. It was a very interesting project, but it didn't last very long. And then I wasn't really in the music scene after that. I did keep in touch with my musician friends, and I did play with people at times. We'd get together and jam and do stuff. But then push came to shove. I moved to the States, and then I thought, what am I waiting for? I need to do this, and that's when I started learning how to play the guitar and being able to write my own stuff. Because before that, I was just a singer, front man. But I'm not able to do the Iggy Pop stuff anymore. So now I have to actually get some culture under my belt and be the songwriter. And I'm so happy I've done it, because it's opened up a whole world to me that I just absolutely adore.
So singer-songwriter stuff is new for you, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, yes.
Wow.
I mean, I was a participant in the songwriting back in the day. I wrote the lyrics, I came up with the vocal melodies, but I wasn't really involved in the actual playing or composing of what the people that were playing the instruments were doing,
So you were involved in the arrangement, just the songwriting, the vocals and lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I like to distinguish that for bands I consult with, because right off the bat, a lot of bands don't realize they're doing, like 10 different professions all wrapped up together. That is the curse of the times we live in. And growing up listening to a lot of Beatles stuff, I just thought every singer wrote their own songs, played their own instruments on the tracks, produced themselves, etc., etc. And but the reality is, in the history of songwriting is the vocal. It's the melody you're singing and the lyric. All the rest is arrangement. And that's a different royalty stream, folks. Anyhow, I go on about this with these bands. And the drummer is always looking at me like, you're killing my royalty stream. Like, man, I can replace you. I can't replace the melody and the lyric. Sorry, man. That's how it works. So...
Yes, the lyric and I agree. Yes, and I've realized how valuable my contribution was to that old band back then. It's I didn't think I was giving them that much, and I was giving them a lot.
Yeah, a lot of singers think, oh, I'm just the icing. The band's all the music, and the music. Okay, well, that's great. The music means a lot. But you can replace the music and still have the singer singing that vocal melody and that lyric, and it is recognizable as that song. And if you take the lyric away from the music is not the same. And so that's just how that has been legally defined. Because back in the day, someone sat there and wrote on a piece of paper lyrics and then went over to their friend. And so you mentioned Elton John. So Bernie Taupin would go write out these lyrics, and then he'd put it on the piano, and then Elton would come downstairs in the morning, sit at the piano, go, okay, these are the lyrics, okay, and start playing and coming up with the vocal melody, right? So you had the singer and melodic part being added to the words, and they were, a partnership in those songs. And so
that's another thing in songwriting, is that not everybody can do everything. Like Elton admits it. It's like he's not a songwriter in the sense that he writes the lyrics. He's written a few lyrics in his life, but the reason his songs are good are Bernie Taupin's lyrics. Mm-hmm. And the lyrics are so good that somebody as talented as Elton can just look at that and just jump on it and see a chord progression, and knock a hit out, But not everybody can do everything. It's sometimes you need the collaboration.
Absolutely. And recognizing that actually, rather than limiting you, opens you up. Again, another shout out to Tim, who is watching us this evening. Working with Tim has been fantastic because he loves producing. And the more that I worked with him, the more I realized I didn't love producing at the detail level. And also Tyrone was on here earlier, hopefully still on. And Tyrone produced me before Tim, and same thing is But for a long, long time, I thought I had to produce myself, or it wasn't real, it wasn't authentic. And letting that go freed me up to become a better lyricist, to come up with better melodies, etc.
Well, my way of becoming a lyricist was, I always liked writing. That was one of the very few things I was good at as a student, was anything to do with the humanities or the arts, and English was one of them, and Spanish. So I always loved writing. And then I became, when I got a real job, so to speak, after my punk rock days, I became a copywriter at an ad agency. So I did a whole career in writing creative work, TV scripts, radio scripts, print ads, you name it, for big time clients, And I learned how to put a lot of words into a 20-second radio spot, And that was one of the best trainings I ever had for lyric writing, because it's basically, that's what a lyric is you try to say something that's big in a very short amount of time. And you have to use an economy of words, but get a big impact in there as far as the content goes. And, copywriting for advertising was probably the best training I ever got for songwriting.
And for those people not in the industry, when Jack is saying copywriting, it's not copyright, the right to make a copy, but is writing text, which is referred to as copy.
WRITE, yeah, copyright. Basically, you're the guy that writes the stuff.
Nice. Well, speaking of writing stuff, I want to play another video of yours, and this is Love You Strange.
Hey there, what's up with you? Never seen a human quite like you. You're hard to describe and categorize. You're a burst of color and then a surprise. The elegy wrapped around you. The muses have so favored you. You grew your garden and kept it up. The honey drips over the loving cup. The loving cup. I've seen mink and I've seen mange, been at peace with life's exchange. But I'd love to love you, I'd love to love you strange. I'd love to love you, I'd love to love you strange. Hold on, don't leave yet. Let's take our time, our feathers are wet. You must go, oh babe, I know, so let me marry your memory to live in my soul. I got you in my soul. I'll always have this time. Keep it in crystal, tie it in twine. As stars we must flow on life's path, and I will always love you in my aftermath. I've seen them set or rearranged, I'd love to love you, I'd love to love you strange. Yes, I'd love to love you, I'd love to love you strange.
That was Love You Strange by Jack Charles. And we have Jack here in the virtual studio. If you have any questions for Jack, feel free to add them in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, and they will appear wherever the comments appear in the stream. So you were talking about this length of time in which your job was to live with words and to craft words and craft organizing them in this distilled form. And that led to your lyric writing. Now, in my case, a lot of my early lyrics were completely improvised. It was like mental William S. Burroughs, just whatever words came out during the recording session, I would then go and cut up and rearrange. So they're very like collage-like, and songs like Mother were what I'd call through composed. There was no verse, there was no pre-chorus, there was no chorus. It was simply an arpeggio that went on and on and on with the drum track, cello, and me singing, and over time raising up to a high point and then having an outro. So structurally, it was sort of like intro, body to denouement. It was more like a novel structure than a song structure, and it took me a long time before I started actually writing in a song structure. Did that evolve with you as you worked with the words, or how did you make that transition from kind of a collage for advertising market situation into here's the verse, here's the pre-chorus, here's the chorus, or had that already come through the punk and the covers?
Well, I had written songs before I was in the advertising world. Basically, they were punk songs. You know, they had a little verse, they had a little chorus. They were usually obnoxious and offensive in some way, or weird in some way, or whatever. In advertising, it was a lot harder because you had to translate strategy, and you had to write stuff that persuades people to do something. And if you're not persuading, you're failing. So it was very challenging at the beginning. I find songwriting much easier because, well, let me put it this way. It was harder there at the beginning, but once you get how to do it, it's like a muscle. You just all you need is the information. What is the information I need to achieve the objective I have been asked to achieve, and you just pile that information in and you start writing stuff. You start vomiting ideas out and you start just start writing ideas and scenarios until you get something you like, and you present it. Usually everything's wanted for yesterday. So you have to do it very quickly. You have to learn how to do it on demand almost. And so that's made my songwriting much easier in a sense. The difference is that when I'm writing a song, I don't get any information given to me. I have to decide what to write the song about. I have to say, okay, what's the challenge here? For example, are you trying to write a dance song? Are you trying to write a rock and roll song? Are you trying to write something that's very profound? Are you trying to do both things, something that really rocks but is also profound? what are you going to talk about? That's why I end up talking about a lot about autobiographical stuff, because I guess it's what I know best and what I think about the most. Trying to fix yourself or trying to live your life and figure out who you are and all that stuff. It's always good ammunition for writing stuff, you know. But the greatest thing that I got from that was the ability to synthesize, to be able to put a bigger thought into one sentence or one paragraph or whatever it is, that try to say like a copywriter from an ad agency is famously says, I wrote my novel, it's 10 pages long, you know. Because they could basically write Gone with the Wind in 10 pages, you know. They'd see everything, they'd tell you everything, but they'd do it real quickly, you know. And they'd pack a lot of information into their thoughts, you know. They'd find a way of making you know it all in a very short period of time. The other thing that advertising got me into was the TV side, the film side. And I actually became a film director for about 7 years, shooting TV commercials. And that's why you'll see on some of these videos directed by me, you know, it's something else that I do. And one thing I love about alternative rock and roll, and being from the school of David Bowie, which I am, is the whole sound and vision concept. Rock and roll is great, but if you can't see Elvis, what's the point? You know, the whole thing about rock and roll was seeing Elvis and his weird clothes and his weird pompadour and, you know, swiveling his hips and scandalizing everybody. That was part of rock and roll. That's what punk did. That's what, you know, rock and roll has done that so many times, where it's all about sound and vision. You've got to have a look that goes with it. So I think that was another thing that my advertising career granted me, is that, you know, you put together your project and you think, you know, are you going to wear your same clothes that you do every day? Or are you going to put the eyeliner on and do your hair and, you know, be the stage presence that this music deserves, you know, or that I think should go with this music and with my type of singing, you know. So I really love doing that. It's the sound, and it's not enough to just write the songs, is you have to look them as well, or perform them visually as well, you know.
This next video.
You mentioned the copyright editing training that you got to help you with your lyrics. Not 2 hours prior to the show, I was reading an ad by a gentleman who was a car nut, and he ended up doing copyright for Ogilvy and Mather in New York City. He considered that his college, and the way they ground down everything, the squeezing blood from a stone, the bare essence, the equivalent of, I used to say, writing a novel in 10 pages. And it taught him everything about writing. And hearing you right now saying this not 2 hours later is perfect. It makes utter sense.
And hearing you say Ogilvy and Mather, as I worked there too. That was one of the ad agencies I was in.
Well and good.
It's a small world after all. Then again, it's always a super small world with Joe Price, because Joe, I met at a science fiction convention, and then he would sneak me into a Renaissance fair, and then I would see him at a Dickens can review, and then I would see him out at swing dancing with goths, and then I'd see him next day at a goth club, and then I see he's out cycling in the Bay Area, and then I see he's out with a motorcycle gang. He's just that kind of guy.
I can explain everything.
Well, I want to show your new hot off the press video. I literally downloaded to sequence the whole show, and not an hour later we were having a meeting and I hear Josh got a new video out. So I had to put it in the show. Hope you don't mind. And this is Until the Sun Dies.
saw things no one else could find. I escaped as soon as I could, broke the lines of the neighborhood. I saw things that made me understand. Escape lasts forever across many lands. Yes, escape lasts forever across many lands. I've lived each adventure I could find. Some folks have been very kind. I was born with an urge to move. It's dope as long as I find my groove. It's everything as long as I can groove. I've survived each attack. You don't get it, I'm not going back. I was born with a mind that flies, and I'll be chasing it until the sun dies. I'll be chasing it until the sun dies. I'd escape again if I could. Break the lines, I think I should. I was born with a mind that flies, and I'll be chasing it until the sun dies. I'll be chasing it until the sun dies.
That was Until the Sun Dies by Jack Charles. And Jack is our guest this week here on Sunday Live. So that literally dropped like Thursday, yeah?
Yes. The single dropped on Thanksgiving Day, and the video just dropped on Thursday. Yeah.
Nice. And I see all the elements there of David Bowie. This one has a little Gary Newman thrown in there too. It has a little more synthetic stuff, a little more of the way that the yellow backlit shots are done. But definitely a lot of Bowie influence in there. And I'd also say Nick Cave. A lot of the tone of your pieces have, again, that piano, that more subtle but intensity that you get with Nick Cave. And if you've never been to have you been to San Francisco?
I have, but I have not been to San Francisco in a few years now lately. It's been a while since.
Did you ever go to the Cat Club?
No.
So, like, this is, Joe, back me up on that. This is like me feeling at home at the Cat Club, a Friday night, a Saturday night. You know, it was anything from what I'd call cobweb goth, which is, you know, very, very romantic, mellow stuff, to goth industrial. So your Nine Inch Nails and now all the what do they call with the bright colors? It's like a techno goth thing that the young kids do. Us old goth and gray people, we sit in the corner and tell them how it used to be.
Actually, yes. The Cats Club on many nights during the week, those 4 or 5 nights, there'll be any variation of themes based on Gothic or Goth Industrial, as well as Death Guild at DNA on Monday nights. You would have loved it. A, you would have fit in. B, you would have loved it. C, everybody would have wanted to meet you. And Caleb was right about some of the seeming influences by Nick Cave, David Bowie, and Gary Newman. I see Scary Monsters album videos, and then the early Gary Newman, the slower songs. But what's equally and more important is that though these influences see these similarities, you have nevertheless made it unique, and you've made it your own. And it is yours, and that's evident in the singing and writing. This is your song.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been called Nick Cave before. I hadn't been called Gary Newman yet, but I will take Gary. And thank you. Yes, I try not to, you know, I let the influences be there. I think they're just there because they're in my heart. I just try to write stuff that doesn't sound like other people's stuff, you know, that is actually my song. I try to keep it original.
Yeah, you give a nod to these for their contributions. You give a nod to them, but you're not plagiarizing. This is your original work, just the same.
Thank you. Well, I Until the Sun Dies is really my coronavirus project. You know, I had other plans for this year, and I didn't realize that I needed to release new material, and the pandemic was the perfect time to do so. Being that, you know, I haven't seen my band since March, and you know, what else are you going to do? You all know this. You know, you've got to produce something, or you've got to have some sort of a digital presence, or you've got to learn other ways of rowing the canoe in the river when you don't have a river to be in. You know, and doing this single I think it's a very autobiographical single. Again, it's really telling my story, but it's also going for being the artist in spite of anything, and the corona is part of that. You know, we still insist on being artists even in the pandemic, and God bless us for that, because you know, what would we do without art, right?
Absolutely. Our ships have sunk, but we become better swimmers as a result.
Exactly.
Amen to all of that. It's it's an interesting time to reflect. I was going to launch into a tour. I had the first show booked here in Seattle, where my wife and I moved last year from San Francisco, and I had a bigger show coming up 2 weeks after that, and the day after the first show at a smaller venue, the whole city shut down, and that was the end of it. And I had bought these lights that you see going in the background. They were for that show, and some other gear that's in here was for my shows. I got my digital theremin for the shows, and all of a sudden, none of it mattered. And then it's like, what do I do with this? And I just happened to be, I think, on the Balanced Breakfast show, and then there were 2 other online shows that quickly came up where they had festivals. And a friend rang me and said, "Hey, I really liked what you did. You should do that every weekend." And I was like, oh, I'm not sure I want to play a show every weekend. Why don't we get some other folks involved and start inviting guests to do this? But it was completely as a learning to swim, as Joe said, without the boat. I'd never done streaming before that. It was a far more complicated than I imagined, filled with far more bugs than I ever imagined, running in the river with me and filtering that out and finding my own space. But to your earlier point, as an artist, you don't really have a choice not to. It'd be like stopping breathing.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's I'm glad. I'm kind of glad I was able to put out some new material. I'm working on another single. I'm in the middle of that, so I don't know exactly when I'm going to be releasing it. It'll probably be next year, early next year. But yeah, I mean, I love being able to do that as well, and we will be able to play these songs live at some point. They will be there waiting for me and for the band. And call out to my band. Love my band.
Waving hi if any of the band is watching tonight.
Maybe they're ignoring me.
Yeah, he hasn't called us in a long time. I know we were trying to get away from the comparisons, but Bowie was always, all of his musicians complained that. They said we'd go on a tour with David, or you do an album with David, and all of a sudden you wouldn't hear from him. In like 15 years, you'd pick up the phone and he would be talking to you like it was yesterday. Or like the day after the last time he talked to you. You're just ever present in his mind and how you fit into his tapestry. And whenever it was relevant, he would ring you and say, so Jack, could you playing the Triangle to rehearsal this week? And you'd be like, I haven't heard from you in 15 years. So hopefully your band's not feeling like that.
Yeah. No, we actually have a little group text thing, and we've done the odd Zoom band meeting every once in a while just to check in on each other and see how everybody's doing.
Nice. Yeah, Tim and I have a weekly meeting just to stay connected. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be happening. So you have to have those people in your life that help things roll forward. I think Joe got me through a lot of where I was just going to give up because we were having bugs every week. Something's gone wrong in the middle of shows. And I was like, I'm fed up. I want to produce quality material and the technology is not letting me. And then I was like, you just need a sidekick to entertain everybody while you find the wire or reboot the system or whatnot. And luckily he joined. So having that support structure in your life makes a huge difference.
Yes, if the flames in Caleb's studio start rising, the screen switches to me and I exult. There's nothing to see. Keep moving along.
Occasionally cutting to me with a flamethrower or something. We actually have a technical difficulty slide that's waiting in the wings now. So we can kick to that if there's any problem on both ends. I want to play another video. The last 2 tracks I picked for the main section today are, I think, both more upbeat and show some of the punk side. It might be only the second one, but I think this one has it. And this is called Burn.
Don't stop until you burn it all up.
That was Burn by Jack Charles. So I want to make sure I captured some of that the high energy side of the band and your full scope of work, and it left me with one burning question. MPIC?
Oh, Musical Partners in Crime.
Ah,
That's the name of my band. Yeah, when I play live with the band, it's Jack Charles and MPIC. MPIC stands for Musical Partners in Crime.
nice.
I thought they should have a name because I'm so thankful to have them. It's a really good band. You're seeing different incarnations of the band through the videos because they're not all kind of chronological right now. But yeah, I have a great band, and I have a sax player. How many people can say they have a sax player?
At that point, I'm like, since Joe and I are big fanboy geeks, we're artists and are all right, but we definitely have the fanboy side to us. And so as soon as I saw that, I'm like, Psychedelic Furs. And then, of course, the Mr. Butler's cross-reference to you came in there. I'm like, yeah, he could totally do a cover of President's Gas. Yeah.
Even X-Ray Specs, a punk rock band of the late 70s, even they saw fit to have a saxophone.
Yeah.
To say nothing of people like Clarence Clements, over English Beat and what have you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hey, and what about Morphine?
Yes.
Where they
Oh my
just
God, people
they
don't-
just did away with the guitars and said, who needs guitars? We've got sax. You know, Morphine was an amazing band. No guitars, and yet they were punk AF, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, Honey White was just my anthem for a while.
I went a little softer, so I tend to think of like Romeo Void or Hazel O'Connor when it comes to the saxophone thing.
Well, and then Roxy Music, which is another one. I consider them an influence of mine. Absolutely, Roxy Music, and having the sax in the band kind of takes you to that saxy rock.
Nice.
It's
Well,
so
yeah,
sax-
and we can do some Eno comparisons there. That had a early Roxy Music, the song "Burn" there of that again that punky, but not totally like T-shirt punk, just a little more artsy, Virginia Plain kind of stuff and whatnot. So I agree with Joe that I can hear all these reference points, but if I wasn't a geek of 70s and early 80s music and post-punk and all that, I wouldn't know those references. You could play in all sorts of different types of venues, from a blues bar into maybe even some kinds of country spaces, punky clubs, gothy space. You cover all these genres, so I think of wow, I forgot Johnny Cash's name for a moment there. Anyhow, this
Oh, that
feeling. That one, Depeche Mode, Johnny Cash, all that. Uh, your sound is like has a straightforward band sound, and then all these little influences, and yeah, having the saxophone in there, having that energy there. Just when I heard your pieces, I was just like, wow, he has, not to get into advertising and marketing too much here, but yeah, I see how he touches all these worlds. Like when you do the band website, I don't know if you've ever done this, where you put the band name and it connects you to all the other people that are like you.
I've heard of this.
It's like a web, and I'll look my different projects up and be like, oh, how are they fitting in? Oh, if I haven't heard that band, I'll go listen to that band. And sometimes I want to be connected to certain bands, but I'm not, because I don't really. I want to be maybe closer to Depeche Mode than I am. I'm a little more closer to Fad Gadget and a little more artsy stuff. But anyways, it's always fun to see that and say, okay, and now I'm going to take off my band hat. I'm going to put my marketing hat on and say, okay, what are these bands about? What is what's the neighborhood of my market? But you've never done that.
I haven't, but it sounds like something I need to do. But I can kind of already see that in my head. It's like how the web goes out, the spider web goes out. Like I know the spider web of my influences.
Yeah, but it's interesting when it's coming from other people.
Yes,
because you get these little surprises. Like, what? I'm not like Britney Spears at all.
You'll have to send me, or remind me where that happens, and I'm going to do it, and we'll have to talk about it.
All right, I'm getting the illustrious Post-it pad here.
There you go.
The stuff of my life. So we got with Jack. We got the I forget what it's called. I'm just going to band web.
Band cobwebs.
And okay, I'm making my notes here. While I'm making my notes for Jack, anybody else have some questions coming up for Jack, either now or in the after party? Feel free to add them in the comments. They'll appear here. And we could get your burning questions answered. I want to show one more video before we break for the Mystic Moment, and this one is called Toy.
This next song is called Toy. Don't get any ideas. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoever said big boys don't cry didn't know a damn thing about life. You can bet your ass dollar they'll find a way to make you harder. Traditions are concerned with your emotions. It fills your mind with insane notions that you are kind fond of. Next to bourbon powder, so when you are, keep others everywhere. That's what you sound wrong. Attitude and to enjoy, boys can destroy. Press all of those feelings, but the pressure I see as unseating. Out of the cracks in your life, like a child, a neighbor, wise. Whoever said that you lack courage, deliberately hides the knowledge that you deserve love and joy. And two bucks being destroyed. Always been destroyed. My body don't confuse my shoulder as a cold, tall, dividing boulder. I won't judge you wherever you cry. By now we've reaching both sides. So whoever said big boys don't cry, you know a damn thing about life. And you can bet your last dollar it will find a way to make you holler. So I let you walk. Choose others out of toy. That's when you try. And it's too much to enjoy. A boy has been destroyed. La 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 la, ooh la 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 la, la 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 la.
And that was Toy by Jack Charles and MPIC. This week's Mystic Moment is dark and light. As we make our way to winter, a few days from now, reflect upon what winter brings. Holidays of reflection, holidays of thanks, holidays of giving. It's during dark times in which we actually take a break. We actually reach out to loved ones, because during the sunny times we are so dang busy. So there's a time for darkness and a time for light, and they complement each other. They're not enemies. If you happen to live in the northern hemisphere, and depending on how far north you live, you experience winter, summer, fall, spring. Remember, not everywhere on the planet does this happen. If you live between the tropics, yeah, there's a form of it, but pretty much things are balanced all year round. But when you get out towards the edges, towards the North Pole, towards the South Pole, that's when you start having winter and summer and fall and spring. And the further north you get, these transitions are more extreme. It's an opportunity to appreciate all that is in life and not worry so much about what you don't have, but to focus on what you do have. So as we march towards winter, I'd like to challenge you to take a pause in your life and let go of all the concerns you have about what you don't have. That's your Mystic Moment of the week. Come back next week for another Mystic Moment. Now it's the after party. Welcome back, Jack. I love the toy track because it's got this feeling of some sort of clubhouse of a fraternal order that you're, being the house band of, and it's got this sort of David Lynch kind of vibe to that stage. Where was that shot?
That was shot at the Sahara Lounge in Austin, Texas. It's an actual venue in East Austin. I love the Sahara. I've played there 2 or 3 times. And that was a video that my friend Jimmy Cadaver managed to get recorded at one of our gigs. That's that's maybe the first time we ever played at Sahara, possibly, because that's a really old video. That's probably like from 2017, 2000, yeah, probably 2017.
Oh, you're such a kid. Really old video, 2017.
I can tell because of the hairdo, because of my haircut and all that. Well, and actually the people in the band too. There's like a couple of people in that incarnation that are no longer in the band or have been replaced. But it's good to see these old videos. And Toy's a weird song. It's kind of on the album. I called it soft surf. It's like a surf song, but it's not really surf rock because it's so low. It's so slow. It's very slow. This is kind of a sped up, kind of more hyper rock and roll band version, live version of it. But it's a good song.
So you're saying the album version of Toy is even slower than the video we just saw?
Yes, I believe it is. It's
wow. Slower. Because I was going to say this was pretty like slowed down swing, and I agree that it has that surf 60s sound. And you've just taken it down tempo. So I can't imagine what it's like, even more laid back.
I think it's a little more, the tempo might be a little slower on the album version. And it's also a much more Lynchian. It's a David Lynch type song. It's a song that I would have imagined playing in a Lynch scene where he's at a club or a bar or something. And this would be the song I would be playing there at that point. It's got really dreamy guitars with a lot of reverb on them, and they sound very, there's no distortion to them at all. It's more of a twangy kind of retro sound of the guitars. And then there's a lot of sort of like Sergio Leone spaghetti Western organs in it on the album too. So it sounds kind of like there's a little bit of like a Western, spaghetti Western feeling to the song as well. And then, it's so slow that I called it soft surf.
The dreamy surf guitar elements somehow it brought to mind the Mermen. This is a group here in California called the Mermen. So like instrumental surf guitar. I think if the Doors did surf guitar, they would sound like the Mermen without the vocals.
That sounds like I would love it. I have to look into these Mermen you speak of.
They played everywhere from Burning Man to up and down across the country. It's very good just to listen to in the background. This is music, it'll take you away. It's like, you think they were sponsored by Burma Shave or something.
Oh, is Jack still out there?
I'm here. I am here. I was just thinking, you took me away with your comment. I drifted away with it. Just like a good surf song. There's like those songs like you were, what I was thinking was Roy Orbison. I wish I could sing like he sang because his voice was, talk about fishing in separate ponds. It's like I could never sing like Roy Orbison, but it was the type of song that I wish I could have sung like Roy would have sung it, and he could do surf, that romantic surf pop that just took you into the distance with those high notes that you think, God, is he going to reach that note? And he reaches it. It's like, ooh, what a range on that guy's voice,
And tone, he had an incredibly unique soft tone. Like I can hit Roy Orbison notes, but the tone is not what a lot of people would want to hear.
It's not pretty. Yeah, I could too, but it wouldn't be pretty.
Yeah. And to get that kind of release, and the tone is very, very, very unique. His voice. I don't think there's. I'm trying to think if there's anybody who's ever come even that close to what he did or his sound. I suppose. What's his name? Has a nice haircut. Probably been in a Lynch thing. And I don't want to be whatever.
Chris Isaac.
Chris
Isaac. Probably the closest I can think of
A little.
That's what Chris Isaac did.
You
So,
know who would have been the thing is that you had to have the voice to be like Roy Orbison. You'd have to have that weird voice that he had,
mm-hmm.
which was kind of very quiet and kind of up here. You know, he talked like he sang up there, and then he'd hit a higher note. I was like, can he go any higher? Oh yeah, he can. But you know, the guy that kind of did music that could be comparable to some of his stuff, but the voice was never going to crack it, was Elvis Costello.
Mm.
You know, he could songwrite kind of like Roy Orbison and do those kind of epic songs that have these wonderful choruses to them and beautiful music. But Elvis Costello's voice is a whole other bag of worms compared to Roy's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, he's I think a more nasal, kind of the way I am.
He's got he's kind of an acquired taste. Some people don't like his voice. I do. I love the way Elvis Costello sings. I just kind of like weirder voices, I think.
I'm there with you. I like voices that are unique and have character. When I hear these sort of female singers that I couldn't tell you which singer, because they all just sound the same to me, I'm bored. I'm bored in the first 5 seconds. I'm like, yeah, everybody loves that their singing is so perfect, and it's just so sanitized. It's like there's nothing living there for me.
Mhm.
And I can understand why people like perfection, or maybe a singer that does what they can only dream of doing, therefore it puts them on a pedestal. But for me, if a voice is that polished, it stops becoming human.
It's no accident that disco precluded punk rock, because you know it was too sanitary and too perfect. You want that edge back, and that was the perfect breeding ground for punk rock. I mean, that punk rock made my bones, man. Talk about the good old days.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Absolutely. Yeah, I think part of, I mean, if you're talking like straight up music, like opera or something like that, where it's like classical music, there's one way to play classical. You can put emotion and, you know, gesture into it, but you can't really rearrange it too much. You have to stick to what's written, and same with opera. It's like either you hit that high C or you don't, you know, and you have to hit it beautifully. You have to hit it like a pro, you know. Most people can't sing that, and most popular musics, especially like punk, rock and roll, all that. It's all about the grit. I mean, imagine the Rolling Stones with a pretty little lead singing voice, you know, like with a Beach Boys type singer. No, you want Mick in there, you know, doing his Mick noises and having his weird voice, you know, and doing his falsettos and stuff. It wouldn't, you would never hear the Rolling Stones. You need Mick in there to be messing it up, you know. Same with the Beatles. The Beatles weren't pretty singers. They did beautiful harmonies. Paul was a pretty good singer, but John, you know, he had this nasally kind of weird voice, you know. You love to hear him sing. You know, we can go on all night talking about weird singers. I have my godparents. I say my godparents are Marianne Faithfull and Johnny Cash, and I'm like their love child. Because yeah, I mean, you need character as well. And sometimes you don't even have to sing that well, as long as you can sing on key. But if your voice can have some character to it, you can probably be a very good singer, you know, or have a style to sing, you know.
It's funny you mentioned, like with opera and even symphony, they have these grandiose, complex compositions, but they're so mechanically perfect. It's like clockwork, but it can be really rigid. Whereas
they're supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be, which is fine too, you know.
Whereas the blues has 3 chords, but that becomes a universal adapter, and from those 3 chords is the wellspring of a universe of development and creativity.
Yeah, just look at the 12-bar blues. Folks, if you don't know what the 12-bar blues is, it's 12 bars long with 12 measures, in this case, sets of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. And it does the exact thing. Dun, dun, this note, and it goes up, and then it comes down, and then it goes up, and comes back down. And that 12-bar phrase is just repeated over and over in every 12-bar sound. And guess what?
Dominic?
There are
Yes.
albums and albums and albums of 12-bar blues tracks. So I like your description of that as the universal adapter. It's just like, it just tastes good. And then the question is, what are you going to do on top? What are you going to do to make that interesting and put some character and tell a story? And so I love the fact that popular music has so many variants, from very super melodic, and there's some melodic stuff I like, to completely Lou Reed spoken poetry style, and it's all allowed to coexist. And if you write a song that connects with people, that's all that matters. And you what was the same year Walk on the Wild Side came out? What else was on the radio? Right? You have this whole range of stuff that has nothing to do with each other, from a singing standpoint. And yet they all existed and were given space. And then, of course, punk came along in '76 and blew up a bunch of doors in England, and eventually migrated over to the North America. And again, like you were saying, Jack, it wasn't about, it was anti-perfection. The more energy you had and more chaos you had, the better.
Yeah, it was about keeping it fun. It's like, it's supposed to be young. It's supposed to be rebellious. It's supposed to be, your parents are supposed to not like it. And I think people were kind of fed up with the prog rock and the sophistication of rock and roll. It got too sophisticated in the 70s. You went from glam, and glam was fun, but then it was like proggy, and then disco, and then everything started kind of breaking up, and punk was like, nah, we're going to keep having fun, And new wave too, because to me, punk and new wave are one and the same. They're born kind of simultaneously, and they're like Siamese twins. And then you throw their little cousin reggae in there and ska, and you pretty much have the end of the 70s and the first half of the 80s covered there, as far as the explosion of new ways of looking at stuff. I love today. Today you can do anything you want, because it's the postmodern era. There's hardly anything new left to do under the sun, I believe, unless we can find it under a rock somewhere. But basically, there's no new musics. It's all kind of like how you mix your retro up. What do you want to do with it? And I have a lot of fun with that. Love You Strange, that's a tango song. That's why I put a tango couple in there dancing, because why not do some rock with some tango? It's what I felt like that day, and I did it. I think that's the fun part of doing music now, is you don't have to be married to a style. You can be married to a sound. You can sound a certain way, but what you do with that sound, man, have fun with it. That's what I want to have fun with the stuff. Even if it's a sad, dark song, I want to do something with it that's going to thrill me and hopefully sound good,
I'm really happy to hear all the barriers between genres falling apart. As you can imagine, my favorite Beatles album was the White Album, because everything was completely different style. You have Tin Pan Alley next to heavy metal, or early heavy metal next to spoken word, whatnot. But what's happening right now, like you said, is a postmodern thing. That might have been postmodern on the album level, but each song was in its own genre and each track. But what's happening now is all those lines aren't blending. Like when you mix a little of this in, they're cracking and they're being collided. So when mashups got popular, and say, what was that, 15, 20 years ago? Now it's more subtle. It's not that you're putting these two contrary things together. It's just that they're existing at the same time. It's not a comparison. I don't think Old Town Road really is a comparison between hip hop and country. It is its own thing, which is made up of the different parts. And those different parts come from different traditions and are put together into a puzzle so that it is complete. It's not it's not Run DMC and Aerosmith doing Walk This Way, where you're clearly showing a binary or some contrast. These things are coexisting in the same space without any didactic authority. It's that these traditions can coexist, and it's not a melting pot either. It's not an androgyny space where it gets homogenized into some central thing, which I think disco did well at, and maybe some lighter funk. But it's a really neat period because, like you said, I hear you as being very consistent. But you can say, oh, that's a little surf, that's a little swing, that's a tango, that's maybe a little post-punk new wave. But you have a unity to what you're doing. So I don't, even though I can draw those references when I'm listening to the music and just experiencing them, my mind isn't going there, right? I'm accepting it for itself. And I'm hearing that more and more. And it's probably one reason why some of these hit songs lately have like 10 songwriters on it. What was it? There was a big artist, female artist recently. Her hit had 100 writer credits on it.
What?
Yeah, it's like someone with a little hip hop, someone with a little jazz, someone like the, and it's all there in the tracks. A little Indian music, a little Arabic music, and you can kind of hear these tastes of all that stuff flowing. But it's like it's not highlighted. Like, okay, now we're going to do a little ethnic bit in this pop song. It's like all just blended in there like spices in a meal. And so yeah, getting these long lists of writer credits on one track it's gotten interesting.
Yeah, but 100? My gosh.
Some accountant somewhere is having a good time because he's figuring, you get
Absolutely.
this penny, you get this penny, you get this penny.
It sounds kind of nightmarish.
Yeah, I encourage the songwriters I work with, own your rights. If your band wants certain rights, then pay them as a session musician. Pay them at the gigs. In fact, they'll probably make more money that way than any sort of royalty stream from certainly Spotify.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And well, I want to show some more of your music. And since Joe was saying how I talk so much, and my mother is saying how I talk so much on these shows, and guess where I got it from? My mother. So if she's telling me I need to show more videos, I'm going to show Nightshade.
Are we ready, mister? Let's do this. I think I'm going to need a little more lead vocal in the monitor, please. Good evening. Welcome to Buzzmill. Welcome to this pre-storm rock and roll celebration. We're going to be your musical entertainment for the night. Music is the art that is the most spiritual because it just goes in your ear and hits you right in the brain. There's nothing you can do about it. And music always needs a beat. And I'm hearing a beat. The beat is the responsibility of Mr. Wesley Riddle. We also need some bass. And that is for Mr. Toshio Mana. And on the weird guitar, we have Mr. Quinn Finney over here. On the keyboards, we have the newest addition to the band, Mr. Sammy Peters. What would it be without a saxophone? We got Mr. Tom Proctor on the saxophone. They are the musical partners in crime. And my name is Jack Charles, and we're here to rock and roll. Let's do this. Look at the moon. Thank you. That song was called Nightshade Vermilion.
That was Nightshade by Jack Charles and MPIC. Jack's laptop battery has died, so he's dropped off Zoom. He is working to get back connected to us here tonight. Joe, some words of wisdom, and I'm just going to move on to the next video. Joe is muted.
So I lost my voice. Such was the brilliance of that last performance. Left me speechless. The thing about the what I liked about his performances, like here and at the Buzzmill and at the Sahara Lounge, however well you endeavor to go, however far you go in your music, never forgetting your roots, never forgetting where you come from, is very important, because in the first place, you take that with you to your rise to stardom, as it were. You get to keep that. That gives you your edge. It gives you your uniqueness, and everybody knows who you are, and they can identify you with that. That is a sort of an anchor that keeps you grounded in your creativity, knowing where you come from, and those underground little garage style lounges and places to play, where there's like 20 or 30 people, and you play because you love to play, and no matter what, but you have to play, you have to perform. It could be 1,000 people, it could be 20 people, but that passion is there, and that passion, as well as that source where you come from, both things you take with you, however far you make it in life with music. So it's seeing these performances at the Buzzmill, at the Savannah Lounge, is very important. Very important.
Well, here is another performance called Absolutely Blue.
It's the kind of sky that's so blue, if you blink, there's swimming ghosts of you. not a cloud in which to lose them, not an inch of shade to keep these bones from melting into glue. But it might as well be midnight, for the cloak of darkness covering the heart that you once knew has kept it buzzing on a note that's absolutely blue. It's daytime, but I see the moon, night's promise of something new. But Apollo isn't resting in the image burning my mind since the last time I saw you. Your windshield blinded my eyes until you turned to take the road to separate me from you. Reflecting the big sky, it was absolutely blue. Perfect day is through, but my dreams are full of scenes of you. No haven for the outcast, no storm to wash away the devastating loss of you. But the sun is sure to rise again, to shine the light on what was then but is no longer true. Lost in an endless sky, absolutely blue. Lost in the sky, absolutely blue. Lost in an endless sky, absolutely blue.
That was Absolutely Blue by Jack Charles. We have Jack back. It's audio only, but we do have him for the final part of the show. We're going to have one or two more chats with Jack and show one more music video and then call it... Oh, wait. Yes. No, two more music videos, and then we're going to call it a wrap this weekend. Hey, Jack, are you there?
By Jack Charles.
Hey, yeah, that was Absolutely Blue. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. I was hearing myself, but that seems to have gone away. So
Hello.
you're talking about your development as music, and what I can say is you're kind of your punk period, your word period, and then you're applying word and music together. You also mentioned at that point you took up guitar. I'm curious, how long did it take you to be able to play guitar live?
Let's see. I probably picked up a guitar in 2003-ish. And I took some lessons and I started playing, and then I started writing some songs before I came to Austin, like in 2012. So I moved to Austin in 2014 and I wrote all my songs here. So I guess it took me probably a good, at least 10 years, of rehearsing and learning how to play before I actually went live and sang live. One thing would be to just play, but another thing altogether is to sing and play at the same time. That was a hard thing to kind of be able to do, and I'm better at it now, I think.
And I'm asking this for pure selfish reasons. It's because I've been toying around with it for 15 years and haven't gotten very far. And but every time I pick it up, something comes out that doesn't come out with keyboard, that doesn't come out with sequencing. It's like it just opens a different door songwriting for me. And so I'm always on myself about got to practice more. How long is this going to take? Well, you're probably too old now. You'll be dead before you can play guitar. All these sorts of self doubts. Yeah, all this nonsense of the monkey brain that plagues us. So, what are some of your ways of sort of shutting that down and moving forward?
Practice, 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 practice. I can't tell you the hours I have stood alone in my living room with a guitar in my hand complaining about how my fingers hurt. But just telling myself, you have to get through this. You have to plow through this if you really want to do it. I think if you want to play guitar, you have to really want it, and you have to just expect a certain amount of punishment, cruel and unusual, as you do so. And basically, it's building up the strength in your fingers, the ability in your fingers, also the strength, and also those calluses. The calluses are very important in rock and roll guitar. And to get some good calluses, I mean, it takes a while. And you just have to have the patience and dedication. I think fretted instruments work that way. It's like you have to just get your knowledge of the instrument, but also your ability to play the instrument for a prolonged period of time up to par. And that's my only advice. There's no easy way around it. Guitars, you've got to practice. You've got to do it over and over again until you start sounding better. And that's the only way.
And as far as the calluses, how do you, because you keep practicing, how do you make sure you don't lose the calluses other than practicing?
I haven't had to deal with that because I've never stopped playing long enough. So I don't know what you would do. I think the calluses are there for a while. I mean, you don't lose them that quickly. I think you would have to stop playing for like 6 months or something to really notice a huge difference. If I don't play, like the longest time I haven't played has been 2 weeks. When I took a trip and I didn't want to take my guitar because I didn't want anything to happen to it, so I just left it at home. And I was going through withdrawal for 2 weeks. Like, I wish I could play my guitar. But by the time I got back, it's like, yeah, the calluses were smoother, but there was still a lot of dead flesh there, willing and able to protect me from my next guitar encounter. I think as you build them up, don't worry about losing them. You'd have to put the guitar down for quite a while in order to lose them.
Yeah, early on, I would go through these phases where I'd stop and start, and the callus would come to the surface, like a chunk of hard dead skin, and then eventually it'd peel off, and there'd be a hole there, and that would make it hard to get back to it until I let it heal, and then I could get back. But really, I was asking the question because I want to get out of washing dishes, and I wanted an excuse to tell my wife, honey, I'm really going to do this guitar thing now. And I had Jack on the show, and he says, no, I've got to stop washing dishes.
Yeah, I can't help you there because I wash my dishes all the time. And actually, it's one of the few chores at home that I don't mind doing is like washing dishes. And I've never had a problem with the calluses. So yeah, I can't help you there. I'd be lying.
Good to know. And I actually love washing dishes as well. And I say love because it's one of the rare moments in which I get to just meditate. I don't think when I'm washing dishes. Everything else I do, I'm thinking about 5 other things. But for some reason, when I'm washing dishes, other than the knives forcing you to be very present, for some reason that process just grounds me and relaxes me and focuses me. So it's actually a very good break.
I know what you mean. Just don't relax and zen out too much when you're doing the cutlery.
Yes.
Be careful with the sharp stuff.
Yes, been there, done that.
Yeah. That'll get rid of your calluses really quick.
Whoops, no fingertip. That's a problem. I once had a job where in my office I had a guitar in the corner. This was early on when I first started toying with it. And it would sit there and taunt me, and I'd pick it up, and I'd try to work on it. And the janitor came by and said, "You got anything in the basket?" "Oh, yeah, I got some basket." And he goes, "Oh, you mind if I play your guitar a bit?" And he played it and he put it back down. And he goes, "Hey, how you making progress?" I said, "I'm having trouble with the fingering. Getting the pinky over here is really hard." He just looked at me and said, "One of the greatest blues players that I've ever known had 3 fingers." And at that point, you stop making excuses and you just get on with it.
I had a nephew that he's playing guitar, and he plays very well now. But when he was starting, I was trying to show him scales, and I go, "Well, the way I'm showing you these scales, you have to use your pinky. I see you're not using your pinky." And he says, "No, I don't want to use my pinky. Like, it's not good for anything," or something like that. And I thought, well, you really should consider getting it in shape. And I remember when I was playing, at first that little pinky couldn't do anything. It was the weakest little finger. I'd only ever used it to kind of scratch my ears and maybe pick my nose at some point. But once you learn how to use the pinky, you really are thankful you have all your fingers there, because it's very useful.
I add some additional notes to the scale. My pinky curls inwards towards, so when my hand's sitting at rest, the top, it's straight up to the top piece, and then top piece kind of rolls and lays on top of the ring finger a bit. So I find when I go for that, I've seen some people that their finger's straighter, they can get that extra bit. So what I have to do is get the base of the finger, get that between the ring finger and it to spread further, and then I can get the notes. And I've started to, get my G's pretty reliable. I'm down on that sharp E string.
Yeah. We should compare the deformities of our hand positions when playing guitar. There's a way of holding the guitar, like classically, where you're supposed to hold it a certain way. And I know I don't do that. I usually keep my thumb up over the top of it, because I play a dreadnought, and the dreadnought has the same sort of neck that electric guitars have, the thinner neck. But I'm always muting the top strings, because sometimes I get really messy with my strumming or whatever, and I don't want to worry about hitting the extra bass strings, So it's important to keep that thumb curled over the top, which in classical guitar is completely unorthodox. It's like your thumb should be resting on the back of the neck of the guitar, so that your hand can get around the neck, and all your other 4 fingers can get around on the fretboard, easier. But that's training. That's how you learn. I learned in garage style. So yeah, my thumb's all over the top, draped all over the top all the time.
Yeah, I do see that rock players or punk players will use the thumb over the top, versus prog players and whatnot will definitely use that thumb as behind the board to counter pressure.
Prog players tend to be very classical. Yeah.
Yeah. I have, I'm trying to think, I've never played a string guitar live. I'm thinking, nope. And, but I do have a synth guitar, which has nice little plastic buttons that don't cut into your flesh. And so I do play that live. I'll do maybe an open tuning, like maybe a open D or drop D, and just do a nice single finger movable shape if it's all in major. Did that with a Gary Newman cover last March. And then with simple chords, I've done that on stage on a float, where we were playing the same 3 songs, I think, for 20 minutes. And so all I had to do is remember those 3 pieces. The thing that struck me with that performance is I think it was just 3 chords being strummed like in halftime, but it had a distortion box on it. And I would just strum 1 chord with a distortion box, and people would go crazy. If I did that same sound, this is a synthesizer guitar, so it's like the sound isn't really all that different. If I did that same thing on a keyboard, you would get no response.
Yeah.
it's, it's so ingrained in our culture. And that last show here in Seattle, the keyboardist said, "You look good in a guitar. You should do it more."
Yeah, there's something about the guitar. It's an archetype. It's an archetypal thing, and it's an archetype that was never conquered by the keytar. The keytar never quite.
No.
It just doesn't give you the bravado that the guitar does.
Yep. It's still tapping versus strumming. There's a certain aggression that the guitar has.
Well, the guitar is also a percussive instrument, especially with me, is where I get real strummy at times. And that strumming is basically percussion. You're basically using those strings as a percussive instrument. And it's a primal rhythm, really. And the keyboards, it's harder to be percussive. I mean, you can do staccato. I think staccato on keyboard sounds amazing. But you don't use it all the time,
True. And unless you're playing an actual, like a baby grand, where you really can play super soft and super loud.
Like Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah, most synth keyboards, even though you have aftertouch and you have some range, it's more like you said, the staccato and legato, both in the playing style or in the patch that you're playing. There's not a lot of ability there to. It doesn't have the subtlety.
It sounds good on an acoustic piano, like a real piano.
Yeah, I mean, when you're banging it, you're literally hammering
you're literally banging. You're hammering it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to make that, to replicate that in the digital world, I would say.
Yeah, and there are some techniques that they've come up with, sort of layering. So you after pressure, so you just dig in your hands a little after the point to get the volume to go up. But that's time taken away from the next thing you're going to do. So it doesn't give you that. Even the synth guitar, which is still a synth module being played, but the buttons on the fret are laid out as a keyboard, so you're pushing buttons versus the string, and then you have metal strings that you're playing on the pickup. Even that you can get more aggressive with. It's just that that downstroke and hitting across the chords. On a piano, you're hitting, say, a chord, maybe a complex chord, but typically 3, maybe 4 keys. On a guitar, especially in an open tuning, you're striking 6 strings, and there's just a visual energeticness about that.
And you can mute it. You can do a lot more to the strings on a guitar than you can on a piano.
Yeah, that's the downside of the synth guitar.
There's only so much manipulation that you can apply to the strings in the piano, because it's in the box and it's kind of like you don't have access to those strings,
This is the
With the guitar, the strings are in your hand, and your hands are completely manipulating how the sound of that string is being produced. So it's literally in your hands to create the sounds, And I think that the guitar is almost like a voice in its way of emoting. It's almost like the human voice, because it's the human hands that are actually creating it.
2 examples of music where there is percussion in the string instruments. You hear the piano in large salsa bands. The piano is very percussive instrument,
and it's central. It's central to salsa, yeah.
And in guitar, you hear a good hardcore rockabilly riff. You hear the guys will be strumming the guitar, but using the palm of their hand against the strings, and it's like you say, it's a kind of a muted percussion, but it gives this almost a subtle growl to the chords when you play, just as a sort of on a rhythm basis.
Absolutely, yeah, it's amazing. And a lot of guitar playing is about muting. It's about the strings that you're creating sounds with, but it's also how you're muting other ones, or actually muting the strings that you're actually making sound because you can mute them and manipulate them, you know. And then you get the whammy bar in there, you know, the tremolo bar, and then you can put it all out of tune if you want to.
Yeah,
And
that's reminiscent of Reverend Horton Heat and Brian Setzer.
Oh yeah. Listening to Brian Setzer play those Gretsch guitars, those hollow bodies with the tremolo, it's just beautiful. Nothing like it.
The guitar is multiple instruments in one. And
so Caleb, I expect to see you becoming a guitar god of sorts in the near future.
so if I get my wish in a couple days, something will happen that it will unleash some opportunity that will lead to that. Or if not, a month from now, my fingers and toes are crossed, and you know, because I've theoretically got it down. Now I just have to practice more and also because I go through every couple of days. I'll go through my what I call my E minor shape, movable shape, my A major movable shape, and just learning little shortcuts like to do the C9 G9. So that you're moving less fingers, but you're getting to the chord in some variant. So to kind of lower that bar so that I can get to a somewhere and I can see some result. Oh, okay. By doing it this way, I can at least strum along when I'm singing and writing. Okay, great. Check. And then now I can play a simple 3-chord song. If I'm doing, say, like a D, D4, C9, G9, it's the minimum amount of fingers I need to move. And I got that idea from fencing.
That's the economy of movement.
Yes. And
my first guitar teacher taught me that always think of the way, even if you think it's weird, the less you have to do, the better. So figure out the easiest way of getting from one place to the other, the economy of movement. I think it's central to improving your playing. And I think I need to apply it more to my playing too.
With singing, I came from classical singing, so I really hear what you were saying earlier about, you know, hitting that note. It's all about, you know, the note and the phrasing and some intonation. It's not too much about interpretation. You want to have a little interpretation, but not much. It's really about hitting the note. And it took me a long time to let go of that in my pop music and say, no, it's about connection and mood and vibe. Screw the note. If you hit it, you hit it. If you don't, you don't. But if you don't get emotion and connection, it doesn't matter. And with guitar, I'm getting that same kind of message is even if I'm not playing this precisely on the fretboard, it's all about the strumming. So you can do a 2-chord song, but how you strum can make it completely different sound and tune.
Yes, I can't remember how the saying goes exactly, but your left hand is basically just a utility. It's just there to make the chord happen, you know. But your right hand, I mean, this is if you're playing a right-handed guitar, of course. If you're playing a lefty, it's the other way around. But your right hand is the one you speak with. It's the one that's actually hitting the strings and really doing the emoting. You can do a little emoting with your left hand, but the hand that really speaks is the right hand.
I like that phrase. The right hand is the one that speaks. And I literally, probably 6 months ago, was the first time I realized that. I was still so focused on trying to torture my hand into these different chord shapes, and that's what I really need to work on, that it just hadn't occurred to me that, no, dude, the right hand isn't just activating the chords. The right hand is, like you say, getting the phrasing and the speaking and the emotion, and the left hand,
the mood, the feeling, all that comes from the right hand. Yeah. Are you plucking, or are you just hitting the string? Are you just trying to just give it a silky tone? Are you trying to be loud? Are you trying to make it cry? Are you bending a note, especially if you're playing electric, you know?
Mhm.
How do you bend a note out and then back in? Of course, you got to bend a note on key. You know, you have to learn how to do that. But because if you bend a note and you just bend it out into oblivion, it sound like shit, you know? But yeah, you should actually try to go up an octave on your same note. So that it takes practice, but yeah, it's all in your right hand. Now the bending is in your left hand too. That's one of the ways you can emote with your left. But yeah, it's and it takes a while. I mean, it took me a while. I consider myself still a work in progress as far as my singing and my guitar playing. I think I'm getting better at it as time goes on, and it's kind of just a continual evolution. The more you stick to an instrument, the further you're going to get with it, I guess.
Yeah, and I have seen that. Well, I find these little shortcuts that open up a door that I think is closed. It's like, just spend time. Even if you're plucking one note, if you spend time with the instrument, it's like you develop this attachment, and paths open up for you that otherwise you wouldn't find. Let's play another video here. I got Let's Go to Town, and then I have a question, and then we'll wrap up. If folks are still out there doing the long haul here, as you know, Sunday Live After Party can go on. If Jack, you're like Mr. Jack Charles says, got to go eat, we'll go eat. But otherwise, I want to play 2 more videos.
Speaking of pride, this song is called Let's Go to Town. Can't stop moving my can with every child, one man. I can't stop moving my bones with anyone around. Let's go to town on the beat tonight. Let's go to town on the beat tonight. Nobody here. go to town on the beat tonight. Let's go to town on the beat tonight. Nobody here cares if we're here. Let's go to town on the beat tonight.
How y'all doing out there? Fuck yeah, you are.
So, Jack, one question I have that comes up watching that piece is what is your role as a guitarist singer in a band with a second guitarist?
My role is more to play rhythm. I'm actually playing less and less guitar as time goes on. There's certain songs lately that I don't play guitar on anymore. I just sing. But that's because the band finally ended up having a keyboardist and another guitarist in the band. Some of my songs I like with two guitars. It just depends. Some of the more rocking songs I like having the double guitar, so that when, like, for example, somebody has to play lead, you don't lose the rhythm guitar element within the song. I'm also combining a lot more acoustic guitar. Like, I will play acoustic on stage and have the second guitarist take care of the electric stuff. It's kind of hit or miss. I think my objective now, my focus now should be more on the singing than on the guitar playing. I think I sing better when I'm not playing guitar. And I think that is more important. Like we were saying earlier, I mean, anybody can play the guitar parts. I don't have to be the one that plays them. However, my voice, this Graveyard Velvet you're listening to now, it's kind of hard to emulate if you're somebody else. You know?
Right. And did you ever feel like a pressure to be playing the guitar and not just singing? Like, okay, I'm up here singing, that's not enough?
No, I basically learned how to play the guitar just so that I could be able to perform on my own and I'd be able to compose on my own. I love the guitar, but I have no intentions of becoming a guitar god or anything like that. I admire guitar gods. I love them. I thank them for their existence, but it doesn't mean I want to be one. I don't think for me personally, it's not necessary. I just want to be the best guitarist I can be for what I do, for what I need the guitar.
Got it.
Which is basically composing and hopefully playing it well on my recordings and live, you know.
And I'm having two more Bowie thoughts, and then I'll stop talking about Bowie.
Okay.
For a moment. One was the Rebel Rebel video I always found very funny. And I think Be My Wife is the same sort of situation where he's got this guitar around his neck, and David could play guitar, although he said he was saxophone first, singing second, guitar third, lyric writing maybe fourth. And he's just like slung. He's got the guitar there, and he picks it up and kind of noodles a little, and then just kind of puts, lets it slack. So here's this music video with all this guitar, and he's just kind of using the guitar like jewelry. And that was the first time I saw an artist do that. Like, don't even try to fake it in the video that you're playing that guitar, but actually sort of rub it in the viewer's face. Like, the guitar is happening, but I'm not really playing it because I'm in a video, right? So, and I don't know, sometimes as a singer who doesn't play an instrument when I'm on stage. I'm focused on just trying to remember the lyrics and remember the notes and my entrances and timing. So playing an instrument was like, seemed like a very lofty goal. But sometimes I felt that. I felt like, yeah, okay, what should I do with myself right now? This is kind of the guitar solo part, where do I put my hands kind of thing.
We'll see if you're Iggy Pop or you're into punk rock or whatever. That's when you're crowd surfing or, offending people or doing contortions on stage. But if you're like me and you don't do that kind of stuff, then yeah, it's what do you do with your time on stage? Well, there's always plenty to do. You have to figure that out. But yeah, I challenged myself to be able to play the guitar and sing at the same time. I thought that I needed to do that. I didn't have to, but I wanted to do it, and I kind of forced myself to do it. I'm kind of brave that way. I'm kind of hard on myself. It's like when I get these challenges, I really take them seriously, and I'm like really strict with myself about doing them. And there's only one way to do it, is just keep doing it. I think it's important to be able to do it in case you end up being the only one on stage. If it comes down to just you and you don't have a band, what are you going to do? How are you going to present a song? You have to be able to do both things, even if it's just adequately. You don't have to be a superstar. Now, Bowie, going back to Bowie, he was a folk singer, and yeah, he was good at the sax, but he played most of all his early stuff was all written on a 12-string, and he was very folky. He wasn't even electric. He was absolutely acoustic folk in his beginnings, and most of his songs were written on a guitar. Yeah,
and all the rock stuff was really Mick Ronson or
Mick Ronson
Tony
was the one that brought rock and roll into the Bowie project and made it work. Yeah. And
my understanding is Mick also was a really good arranger. Like he could write sheet music. So a lot of that, like Ziggy Stardust and an album and whatnot, he was doing string arrangements as well as the guitar parts, and was a huge component to.
Yeah, he wasn't credited with it, but he did take care of all that. He did the arrangements that are absolutely fabulous. I mean, yeah, he gave Bowie a makeover, really.
Yeah.
As far as the sound went.
And I agree that David's sound and approach, and you certainly see it before, that was definitely more folky, laid back, singer-songwriter kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So my last bit on Bowie before we take our Bowie discussion offline and we start sharing music videos and all that kind of stuff on Facebook is again, Cat Club in San Francisco is where I met my wife, and was the place I would go hide at, and or just go let my hair down and chill out and just enjoy the music and feel at home with the culture and the scene and the music that was being played and whatnot. A big reference point of mine. There was one night I wasn't at the Cat Club, and Joe was. And I was actually, I think, at Death Guild, and I was promoting some new single and with the DJ there, and I get this call on my phone. Come to Cat Club. I'm like, what? What's up? Stop whatever you are doing and come to the Cat Club now, Joe said. To which I'm like, if Joe's that solid about something, I better get myself down the street to the Cat Club, which was a block or two. So I march on down there and I walk in, and it's an entire club filled with every David Bowie. We got the Labyrinth David Bowie, we got the Thin White Duke David Bowie, we got the Young Americans David Bowie, got the Ziggy Stardust David, all the personas packed into this small club. This was the weekend after weekend after David died, and they had decided to cancel whatever they were doing that night and make it Bowie night. And it was literally just a nightclub playing David Bowie music back to back all night long.
With impersonators.
With every fan that had a costume of their favorite Bowie present. It was packed to the gills. It was an incredible fun time. And
I remember when he passed away, and it was just shocking to me. I was so sad. And you're always sad when somebody you love dies, but there was something with Bowie that really, it just really affected me. And I don't know, he had just put the album out. It was, you could tell that it was like a death album, like a mortuary album, a requiem, whatever. And then they did a drag tribute to him at Elysium here in Austin, in honor of his birthday or whatever. And then he died. It's like I had all this Bowie in my life for my whole life. But in that period, all this stuff, he was very relevant to me at that moment. Then he dies. And something in me got really sad. It was like, I couldn't really define it until one day I thought, Bowie was always really good about listening to new music and helping younger artists or unknown artists or artists that he liked anyway. I'm sure he was probably persnickety about what he liked, but he when he liked something, he always helped them out or whatever. And I guess something somewhere deep inside of me, my little fanboy the little fanboy that lives somewhere inside of me was kind of like said that, not that he would have heard my music, but no, he certainly never will. The chance of that ever happening is gone, and not that he would have, but the chance that he could have, and now it's no longer possible, was kind of really sad to me. It's like I would have loved to even get a sneer from him, like, oh, that's shit, that's crap, or whatever. That would have been enough for me.
A Ricky Gervais moment.
Yeah, that night at the Cat Club, David Bowie had died just days prior, and that evening morphed into a David Bowie memorial. It was so packed, so crowded. It was like a vintage nightclub scenario that I grew up with from day one. An ultra packed, ultra sweaty nightclub. Everybody who was anybody was there. It was so crowded. I remember getting into a panic attack of sorts, but I also remember this was a very historic, momentous occasion, and I dare not leave the club. So I put up with it, and I was ever so happy that I stuck around, because it was an amazing coming together of people who appreciated Bowie's music and who grew up with Bowie, and people with whose lives were shaped by Bowie's music. So it was very important to be there. There was no way in hell I was going to move. And despite the crowd, despite the very stifling temperature, I could not leave. I dare not leave. And it was very important to be there. And I'm glad I stuck around.
And for me, I remember the exact moment of where I was when John Lennon was shot. And with Bowie, I remember like the week. Because it, Black Star had come out. Everybody, all the people were coming up with crazy hypotheses of what it was about, and the videos was getting shouted as blasphemy and blah blah blah, and all this stuff's happening. And then Lazarus dropped. I saw the video, and you're just like, oh, right. And then his birthday, and then gone, and it was like that whole month was about that transition. And then you're listening to the album over and over again and going back through all of his works, and which I'd gone through before. And the moment for me was that moment when we realize there's going to be no new song. Yeah, there'll be, B-sides, stuff pieced together from earlier albums,
Right.
recordings that were never finished. But as an avid collector, I have almost everything anyhow. Every once in a while there's a brief scrap, but the idea that there will be no new album. And like you said, he moved in so many circles and was attracted to so many different musicians and would adopt their styles or collaborate with them, and just all of that was no longer possible.
Yeah, the trail of the narrative is over. The character is dead. We reach the end. There is, yeah, it's because there was always a part of me that was always, I wonder what Bowie's going to do next. You know, I can't wait till I, see his next album, and that's gone. Yeah, you're right. It's sad. We saw the end of the story.
And every album was so different than the previous one and defied expectations that's what you were waiting for. And I thought when they had Michael, what's his last name? Michael J. The guy who played the lead part in the play Lazarus, they had him come on the Letterman show because David, once he got back into doing music with, the next day he said he wasn't going to perform live. So with the Lazarus single, you know, these shows used to invite him to play live. So they invited him to play live, and they booked him to play Lazarus live. And the guy playing his Newton character in the play introduced himself as David Bowie. Walked up the line and said, "Good evening, my name's David Bowie. This is my latest single, Lazarus." And you're like, oh, what's happening here?
Yeah.
And the lyrics in Black Star imply this, that Bowie will never die. David Jones has died, but Bowie's never going to die. And he can pop up at any moment. Unexpected. So I actually was surprised when that thread wasn't continued, where there weren't, maybe that was just a moment to say other people can be Bowie, therefore all of us can be Bowie, and creating that sort of immortal figure. But I don't see how that really generates more material. I think there was an opportunity there, but I think as years have gone by, that would seem less the case. I mean, I suppose Tony and how much of a role he's played in David's life, the fact that he tours doing Bowie songs now, it's kind of the fragmented empire of that character.
Yeah.
But I don't see it being anything more than a ghost.
There may be some material that has not been released. It was rumored that he did keep working as long as he could. So there may be some like unfinished tracks or tracks that are kind of finished, maybe some singles or something that might come out eventually. I don't know. Bowie would be capable of that and more, you know, leaving surprises, like post-mortem surprises. That I wouldn't be surprised if something popped up. Wouldn't be anything big though. It wouldn't be like a whole album or anything like that.
I know what Tony Visconti said at the time, yes, David left me a wish list and left me a list of things to do. The most recent question someone asked him, there was something they asked, and his answer was, "I've not heard from his estate. I would love to do it." I was really happy that Never Let Me Down, the album, got reworked. And some of it, I still think day in, day out, there's a much better song there hidden in it. But several of the tracks, Beat on Your Drum, and I think that was the track that I liked best from it. But I liked a bunch of the new mixes. Mike Garrison's, I think got to play some of the keyboards on there, and then Reeves. got to play guitar. Sometime there was a couple spots where Reeves is like, "No, your guitar is just too screechy," which is great for a lot of emotional stuff. But right here, it's not the right moment. So we all kind of get to be this critic of reproduction. And since he always said that that album was an album he didn't have much to do with, it was interesting to see that that was on his list of things to do. Oh, Man Who Sold the World, of course, is the most recent rework wish that he had for it to be released under its original title.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it's like there's this little laundry list of like, I want to, okay, this is my George Lucas moment. Man Who Sold the World gets out with my original title and the original cover. The album of material that didn't get released around Young Americans, that gets its own album. Okay, I never liked Never Let Me Down. Let's rework it somehow. And so it's certainly his command of his catalog. In that sense, he's still present. He's still saying, do this, do this, do this, right? As time and money is available. You sound like a person like me who's dug in really deep with this stuff, and I have the hour or 2 hours of outtakes from, well, I guess what originally was going to be a jam album that got turned into Outside. And it's just fascinating, just the variety of material. To do a 2 hour or 3 hour jam where you're doing like random word poetry and stuff, and then for that to get rejected by the label, so you turn around and cull it into a concept album. So there's definitely a lot of that material out there. What Toy hasn't ever been officially released, right? Even though some of those tracks got re-released as B-sides for the Heathen project. There's certainly tracks on there that I think you could re-release that album, even though, different alternate version happens on Heathen. There's no reason I can see why that album doesn't get officially released. Or maybe you just felt like because that album eventually got out anyhow, that maybe it should stay in that state.
I guess.
It's interesting.
Interesting
to know what.
Yeah, Never Let Me Down was an album that I really tried to like. I did like a few tracks, but I have to go back and listen to it now if it's out again, because I literally have not listened to it since it was out on vinyl when it was new.
You'll find. You'll like the. I think you, as a Bowie fan, you'll like the album better than the one that came out in the '80s. I think some of the tracks, they hit the right spot, and some of them they just didn't go. They didn't go far enough. Maybe they ran out of budget or ideas where they could have taken it. Again, day in, day out. I've always wanted it's more rock, but it's still got that static drum beat. I think that track could be made into a really good rocker. That the static drum beat just robs the lyrics of their punch.
Mm-hmm.
There's several of the tracks on there are really nicely redone.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's a worthy and listen on a good setup. It's definitely mixed for a good pair of headphones, not your iPhone.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more video.
Well, let's do a video. Which one is it? Question?
It is Question.
That's a good one.
Here we go.
that my enemy's coffin passing by my door? Is that yet another I told you so? Did the early bird catch the worm? Did your guardian angel keep you from harm? Is that spilled milk on the floor? Y sin embargo se mueven. Am I the only one who questions? Are those the sparks of history's friction? Did you conquer freedom with addiction? Is that blood on your badge of honor? Did you come and become a goner? Was it true or was it fiction? Y sin embargo se mueven. Run, 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 I'm catching up. Run, 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 I'm catching up. Oh, oh. Am I the only one who questions? I question your intention. Is that a snake hiding in the grass? Is that a stick placed in your ass? Was the sheep wearing wolf skin? Did the doorman not let you in? Why you got a problem with all I ask? Y sin embargo se mueven. Run, 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 I'm catching up. Run, 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 I'm catching up. Oh, oh, am I the only one who questions? I question your intention. I question your intention.
That was Jack Charles' Question. Well, Jack, thank you for sticking it out and doing the extended tour from Sunday Live.
Hey, thank you. Sorry, it had to be in total darkness because of my little failure, my laptop problem, whatever. But at least you got to see me for a while, and I got to see you guys for a whole while, and I have enjoyed chattering with you and spending some time here talking tunes, talking shop. I love talking shop.
That was great. That last performance, I noticed your thumb going over the side of the top of the neck there. And also your between the sax and your vocals, that was reminiscent of a little Morphine in that last song.
Oh yes, very much so. I love having the sax. I don't know, it takes you places. We were talking about the Roxy Music influence as well.
Yes.
I think you can feel some Roxy in here. If my voice were closer to Brent Ferry's, it would probably sound a lot like Roxy Music.
Yeah, Roxy Music, no doubt about the saxophone influence in the mid to late 70s.
I was about to say, I think it's great that your voice doesn't sound like Bryan Ferry. So you could say it has some Roxy Music influences on you, but it's not like you're doing Roxy Music.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I say it just as a matter of speech. Yes, we do not want to sound like Roxy Music.
You want to sound like Jack Charles.
Exactly.
Well, Joe, do you have any final words for Jack here before we wrap up this week's show?
One in particular, yes. As I said earlier, I would, if I may be so bold, investigate The Mermen, even just for your listening pleasure. Great meditative music is cocktail meditation. Sort of like a Zen tiki bar lounge vibe. The Mermen, I think you'll love them.
Joe, thank you for that. And I am going to search for them practically as we speak. Thank you for that. I love being turned on to music I was not aware of.
And your music has been a turn on. I've loved hearing it, and your exploits and all your musical upbringing. It's been a wonderful journey.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that very much, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
And even though we've gone from 4:30, 7:44, I feel like, Jack, we've just scratched the surface of the conversation. And so I think I tapped a lot of your videos, so you're just going to have to produce a lot more during COVID, and we'll have you back in 2021.
We will do that. They will probably be solo videos, but we will do more, and let's scratch the surface more. Let's do this again sometime.
Cool. I'd really like to find out. Okay, I'm starting a whole nother conversation. This is typical of me. All right, I'm going to hold and put it, and as the trainers say, put that in the parking lot for 2021. I look forward to hearing
them. Say shut up.
What was that?
Is this where I'm supposed to say shut up?
Only until the next time you join us.
Okay.
Which we hope you do.
Thank you.
Definitely. Love this stuff, and we will Bowie geek out offline. Thank you again so much for showing up. Go ahead and hang out in the Zoom. I'll wrap up the show, and we can have a little more chat. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into Sunday Live with our guest, Jack Charles, this week. And I hope you enjoyed his music and all our references. If you're not familiar with the bands we were talking about, go check them out, too. Check out Jack's work on his YouTube channel, buy his album, support artists, all that good stuff. If you're interested in my stuff, you can check me out on Facebook, Caleb Duarte. And I have 3 bands. They are on Bandcamp and YouTube. That's Audio Terrorist and Caleb, my solo projects, and Cuirbleu, Cuirbleu, 2 French words that are hard for anyone to say. Have a great week and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for watching Sunday Live. Check us out from 5 to 6 every week, Pacific time, on Sunday.